We have a segment, sir, called Celebrity True or False.
Okay.
Where there are stories from your past that we want to know if they are true or false to make sure that the internet is accurate. If that's okay with you,
all we
sir.
want.
I appreciate that. Hit it. We actually have some.
We're so close to the internet being accurate that this
is going to
lock it up.
Exactly. This will lock it up, and we even have some production value to it. Go ahead and roll it. Go ahead, roll it.
Celebrity True or False?
You can't handle the truth.
That's it. That's our production value.
I like it.
What do you think?
like
I
it.
mean, as a producer, director, what do you think?
That's
of our
like the
production
kind of cut and paste graphics you just download from some site.
That's what we've got. That's what we've got. All the budgets. You're looking at the whole budget.
This is pretty
here.
nice.
Thank you.
You've scored.
We have
this is a nice
actually.
situation.
The crazy thing is, we find stuff here every day that we have no idea what's here, and half of it's broken. We have no idea how it got broken. Okay, first up, Judd Apatow, Celebrity True or False? True or false? You dropped out of college in your second year and wound up moving into an apartment with Adam Sandler. Is that a true story?
That is a true story.
How did you move in with Adam Sandler? How did that work?
Well, Adam at the time was living with Alan Covert.
Well, he's in all of his movies.
And Alan, from Grandma's Boy, and he produces Adam's movies, and it's hilarious. And they were living together, and at some point, I'm not sure Covert was covering the rent. I think is how I got in there. I think there was some sort of transition of Alan had a different situation, and Adam needed a new roommate. I paid $425 for my room. He paid $475 because his room had the bathroom in the room in our little terrible apartment in North Hollywood.
Okay.
And so that was like our early years as comedians trying to catch a break. Then he got Saturday Night Live and left me alone in the apartment.
With Alan Covert?
No, I was alone in the apartment. But I realized this the other day. When he left to SNL, he didn't bring his clothes or his ID. He just left. He just disappeared, like someone who disappeared forever. I literally have his driver's license from 1991.
He just said, "Screw it, I'm gone. I got the call."
Something else was happening.
All right, second one. You interviewed Garry Shandling as part of what you just mentioned as a teenager for your radio station.
Yes.
And that's how you wound up getting hired to write jokes for Shandling when he hosted the 91 Grammy Awards. Is that
Well, that is false.
Okay.
I interviewed him when I was a kid on the phone. He was in Vegas, but he had just hosted The Tonight Show for the first time, which was a big deal. And he was hilarious on the phone. Then I didn't, I wouldn't follow up afterwards because I was a child. I was 16 years old.
Yes.
You can't really follow up and go, hey, do you want to be my friend?
Okay.
But later in life, I was doing stand-up and he was doing stand-up, and he was about to host the Grammys and he needed someone to help him write jokes. And that was my first really significant job in show business. And then I went to New York, and Sinatra's on the show, Bob Dylan, Bono. It was crazy, because I had never been around.
Sinatra was performing at the 91 Grammy
He
Awards?
got the Lifetime Achievement Award that year, and Bono gave it to him, and Nicholson gave an award to Bob Dylan. It was a very, very cool.
Oh my God!
Cool
Do you remember any of the jokes that you wrote for Shandling?
I always remember one joke, which is there was a country western guy with really long sideburns.
Yeah.
And Garry said, "I've never seen sideburns like that before, and I'm a Trekkie."
Well, I know, your documentary that was on HBO about his life through his diaries is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
It was so beautiful, and
it's on HBO Max.
And everyone should see it, honestly, because it just reveals a human being that made so many people laugh, that had his own demons, and his way that he always seemed to have a positive outlook.
Yeah.
Despite that, certainly what he wrote about. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced to him about a couple of years before his passing through a mutual friend. And through that, he invited me to lunch. And he sat down, and when we sat there, he'd already watched a couple of episodes of this show and gave me tips about moving the desk closer to the guest chair.
I'm still pretty far away.
I know. That's the COVID thing. I think it would, but
it used to be closer.
It used to be much closer. Like literally, he told me that you should be touching knees with your guest. Like and then the long emails he would send with just thoughts and notes. It was unbelievable. And we had just kind of met.
Yeah, he was very giving that way. Like I would like a funny story is I always would have him at the table reads. So before we would shoot a movie, we would read it out loud. We get all the actors, and we would invite a lot of friends and writers to tell us if the movie was working. So I had him at the table read for The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And then the debate afterwards with a bunch of people, Adam McKay was there, we were debating, does the 40-year-old virgin masturbate? Right? Like, wouldn't that be a part of this? Like, can you ignore that concept of self-pleasure in a movie like this? And Garry takes a pause and he goes, what if you had a sequence where you just show him prepare to masturbate? And he puts on his favorite robe and brushes his hair, and it's in the movie, and it's hysterical. And he would do things like that all the time.
And that's how that scene got in the film.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you have a good a go-to story that you can share about the Larry Sanders Show when you were on that?
About that show? I mean, everything was a story at the Larry Sanders Show because, you know, it's a talk. It's behind the scenes of a talk show. It's also on HBO if people want to see it.
It truly is in the conversation of the greatest television show of all time. Period.
Yeah, it's
end of story.
Very funny, and the Bubba in a way is like a grandchild to it because it's making fun of the behind the scenes of people in a bubble trying to make a flying dinosaur action movie
with terrific cameos and a great cast and everything like that.
Yeah, so it's connected. But it was just always intense over there because Rip Torn was one of the stars.
Oh my God.
And Rip Torn was a genius, but very like gruff. And maybe he was drinking certain days. Like it was emotionally challenging, but it was always worth it because he was the best ever. And one day we were shooting and I'm directing. I've never directed before. And he just turns to the cinematographer. He's like, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. You're shooting my ear. You're shooting my ear. You gave me the Caesar shots to everyone else, but you're shooting my ear. And it didn't really make sense because the guy was like right in front of him and he didn't like the angle. And the guy's like, what are you talking about, Rip? He's like, I know the angles. I shoot skeet. And he really just goes off about this. And then later in the day, I see him walk over to the cinematographer, Peter Smokler, who did like Spinal Tap. It's an amazing cinematographer.
Yeah.
And he says, you know, this morning I woke up and I was washing my car like by my house and I was walking and I hit my head on a piece of wood hanging from my house. So I'm not mad at you. I'm just mad.
Because of that.
Because of that. And that's how it would usually roll in a very strange way. But the scene would always be remarkable. And he was like a big puppy.
As Artie, I mean, it's unbelievable. One of my favorite lines, because I'm from Staten Island. By the way, great movie, The King of Staten Island. I grew up with every single person in that film. It was as authentic as it gets. That just I remember when Larry was complaining about the guest list and it wasn't very up to snuff. And he says, on tonight we've got Staten Island's streetwise troubadours, the Wu-Tang Clan.
Well, what's funny is Garry didn't really know music that well. I hired my friend Juliana Roberts help book music acts, but Garry didn't really know almost anybody in music. Yeah. So we would book the people that we just wanted to meet. Yeah.
Why not?
Would the Wu-Tang Clan show up here? Yeah, you know, and so hey, Los Lobos is on the show. Like we would just, I remember we got Warren Zevon to do the show.
Yeah,
and we would just keep introducing people to Garry.
I love it. A couple more here with Judd Apatow, Celebrity True or False. LeBron was cast in Trainwreck because he was one of the only players and sports figures that Amy Schumer, who was writing it, had ever heard of. Is that true?
I think when you write a movie and you have a joke, such as, you know, Bill Hader is someone who does operations on people's knees. He's a knee specialist. And his friend, we want his best friend to be a giant athlete, like the most successful athlete you could think of. So Amy in writing would just write, well, who's the most famous, successful person? So in your script, you always write that name. And then at the end of the day, you know, you get, I don't know, Glenn Gondrezick. Guys, can I do an old reference?
By the way, that's a golf clap for Judd Apatow.
You didn't think I'd pull out something like that from the 70s?
Wow.
Anyway, so you don't get the person that you intended to get.
Yes, correct.
And so Bill said, well, you know, he hosted Saturday Night Live, and he's a great guy, and he's really funny. Maybe he would do it. And then Bill and I went out to lunch with him after watching him in a game the night before. And the thing I always remember about the lunch, first of all, he got the joke instantly, and he was hysterical. Like, it's funny because he's really funny, and he understood the nuance of what that was. But he's eating at the restaurant, and all the different Lakers keep walking over. No, it was pre-Lakers.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was before that. All his teammates keep walking over, and they're all exhausted from the night before. Like, they look annihilated at noon the next day. Like, they looked like they'd been through something terrible, all of them, and they're all like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm okay. How you doing?" And people don't realize what it takes out of them.
Yes.
Am I right about this?
Well, it could also been if it was in Miami, it could have been a late night the night before.
It did not have that sense. It looked like true exhaustion. And I was like, in my job, I'm never that tired. I'm not recovering like that. So I was impressed at the work ethic.
So it could be that line from Airplane, Kareem. You tell your dad to drag Walton into Lanier up the court.
Exactly.
Drag Walton and Lanier's ass up and down the court.
I put LeBron right up there with Kareem and Airplane in terms of solid comedy performance.
But he got the idea, and he was great, and he was tremendous in that.
Yeah.
Movie. So was John Cena. He was hilarious in that movie.
John Cena was so funny, and also John Cena. And I can't say I was following wrestling at the time.
Yes.
So because I was more of a Bruno Sammartino guy.
Nice. That's the Glenn Gondrzak of wrestling.
Well, he was more successful than that.
That's true.
Right?
Yes.
But Cena came in, and I didn't. Someone just showed me a tape like, hey, maybe a wrestler could play this part, because we just wanted her to have a very muscular boyfriend. And I'm like, that guy's hilarious. And they were like, yeah, he's like the champion. I'm like, oh, I literally didn't know who he was, which is. It says bad things about me. I should be following wrestling more closely. And the nicest, funniest guy, just so game to go for it, came in with tons of ideas. And he does a funny cameo in The Bubble.
Okay, very good. The Bubble, again, in theaters on April 1st. And the last one, I know this is true, but it's just a way for you to please tell the story, that Steve Carell insisted on having his chest literally waxed. It literally is him.
Like, that's real hair, what you're looking at. Like, that's not like the prop guys
version.
made funny hair on the
That's
stickers.
literally his hair.
That's the hair they ripped off, and we would just put it there. And that still is the actual reaction to the pain of doing it. So we had 5 cameras set up.
Because this is a one take. Like, you can't.
We could only do it once. You can't like glue the hair back on and do it. And it was Steve's idea. He's like, I think it'd be funny.
Yeah.
Now, the thing I realized later
Yes.
was he claimed at the time that he had never waxed before. But now I realize that he had. Because he's a wax. He's manscaped. He's manscaped. And,
Well, you've done, Anchorman. We've done other films with him.
But he really pitched it like, I think this would be funny. I imagine it would be funny. It would hurt a lot. Like, no, he'd done it. It was all a lie. And the woman who waxes him came in, and we needed an actress who also knew how to wax, like a professional actress / waxer.
That's quite a Swiss
And
Army
I
knife.
think the woman maybe did it once or twice and got fired.
Acting?
The number one rule when you wax is you don't put the wax over the nipple, because you could just rip someone's nipple off. And she did. There's like a shot. And we realized later that she lied that she knew how to wax just to get the part. So that might be why it hurt so much. Maybe it wouldn't have hurt if she knew how to do it.
As someone who has told some fibs in his past, you had to respect her for, just wanting the role.
You gotta fake the resume.
Yeah.
You gotta, if there's anything I can say to the kids out there, fake the resume, get the job, then prove you can do it. Fake it till you make it.
Oh, my God.
Figure it out later.
And Kelly Clarkson was just an ad lib? That was just...
Well, Seth Rogen, I knew that I wanted him to curse at her.
Okay.
Because as a kid, I always went to Action Park.
Oh, my God. You survived it.
And so Action Park, as everyone knows, has these like cement tracks, and you'd ride these scooters down them, and everyone wiped out on their arms, and all their skin on their arm would get ripped off. And then you would go to the nurse, and the nurse would spray this like pink antiseptic, antibacterial something on it. And every guy in New York, am I allowed to curse here?
Go for it.
They would be like, they wouldn't know it would hurt. And then she would spray, and they would be like, you but it was like a line of people, and it could be like a nice woman would curse out. They all cursed out the nurse, and so I told Steve that story, and I said, every time act like you're not going to curse at her and then curse. And then I asked Seth, can you write out a list of curses, which he wrote. And then I said, can you get a couple of clean curses?
Yes.
So if I ever have to air this on ABC, and then Seth wrote Kelly Clarkson.
Kelly. Have you ever run into her?
I just did it last week. We're bonded over this joke for life.
Oh my gosh. Fantastic. And we didn't even touch on literally 2/3 of what you've got going on. Sicker in the Head, Judd Apatow, a book where you can pre-order right now. It comes out next week on the 29th. And then on the 1st of April, The Bubble. I didn't even mention Keegan Michael Key is in this movie. And he is one of the funniest guys I have ever met. He's been he's been incredible. What a heck of a cast.
Fred Armisen too. David Duchovny. Is he one of your basketball friends from? I used to play basketball
from the famed Garry Shandling games.
Yeah, and he played like more seriously at college, I believe.
Okay,
I don't know. Did he play? Is that a lie?
That'll be for his celebrity, true or false.
But he actually knew how to play.
Okay.
But I was mainly covering, like weaker people like Alan Zweibel. Alan Zweibel from the great writer, Saturday Night Live legend. Yes. And he fell at me once and dislocated my shoulder.
Oh, God.
And then that was the end of my basketball career.
Then that's the end of it. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.